Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Our focus this week is fire safety, and more specifically, the Joplin Fire Department. And joining me today is the Chief of the Fire Department, Jim Furgerson. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Fire safety is a year-round concern. We're taping this kind of toward the end of 2016. People might be curious from an administrative perspective. If somebody says, how are things going with the fire department? How do you answer that question?
Things are going very well. We've had a couple exciting projects going on. We've had an exciting announcement made within the last couple months and concerning our ISO rating. Our ISO rating decreased from a 3 to a 2. And some of the projects we have going on right now, we completed phase 1 of our training grounds project, and we have started phase 2 of our training facility project at this time. So.
Right. Well, in this next half hour, I'd like to talk about some of those things for the audience and kind of explain for them.
Sounds great.
ISO, maybe we need to start off with the basic definition, what that means, and kind of the nuts and bolts of what that means.
Well, ISO stands for Insurance Services Offices, and basically what ISO does is really they kind of look at a fire department to see how efficiently and effectively they operate. And it truly is a collaborative effort. They look at a number of things, and I'll just start from the time we get the call. So they look at our communication systems. Okay. How quickly do they answer that call? How quickly do they get that call out to us so we can get rolling to the emergency, whatever it may be. Another thing they look at is where our station's at geographically. How quickly can we get from point A to point B from anywhere in the city? So they look at things like that. They look at our record keeping. Are we testing our trucks properly? Are we testing our equipment properly? Is it maintained? Our training records, are they up to par and stuff like that? And then just basically, and then they look at our water system. How many people we have? How many people can we put on a fire scene? Because the more people you can throw out a fire, the quicker it goes out. So, and then they look at the water system. Are the hydrants tested properly? Is it adequate enough to meet the needs of particular buildings, our homes in the area, so that we can put enough water on the fire to get it out?
So really, it's a very comprehensive test, basically, for the fire department to pass.
It truly is, and you know, the good thing about one of the biggest things that led to our ISO decrease was the training center, which we're going to talk about, I know, here after a while. You know, and once again, I have to thank the citizens of Joplin, because in 2006 they passed that public safety sales tax, and which enabled us to build projects like that, and they truly played a key part in helping us get from a 3 to a 2.
So what does it mean for the citizens to say, I live in a community where the ratings have changed and now they're better than they were?
Well, if you talk to insurance agents, it varies from agent to agent. You know, some may see a minor decrease in homeowners insurance. Some may see none. It just depends on what their insurance company uses. For businesses, it plays a bigger part. Of course, you know, there's more to insure at a business. So, you know, 1% insurance cost for a business could be $10,000, $20,000 as opposed to a homeowner that could only be $20 or $30. So it really helps the businesses out. But some homeowners may see a little modest decrease in homeowners insurance.
Okay. So for people living within the city of Joplin, your service area, it means that they can say our city has improved as far as in basic layman's term in terms of fire protection.
Yes, that is exactly correct. That is the easiest way to describe it. We have improved our fire protection, our efficiency, and effectiveness.
Now, how often is that evaluated?
ISO usually evaluates on an every 5-year basis. For us, you know, I took over as fire chief in January of 2014. Shortly thereafter, we had an ISO evaluation, and we remained a 3. Fortunately for us, we got the training center built. I invited them back a year later because I thought we would improve. Right. We did improve. So it's every 5 years, or you can invite them back if you make changes that increase your effectiveness.
So does it help you as far as an administrator that they provide feedback to you as far as things that you could have done differently that you didn't realize, or help you with continuing education?
Most definitely. Anytime that you can get advice, anytime that you can get some guidance to make yourself a better department, to increase the overall effectiveness and the service you deliver to the citizens is huge.
Right. So this is something that we now have in Joplin, and for people that perhaps businesses probably looking at a city, this might be something they'll look at as far as the different aspects of community development and economic development. Maybe.
That is exactly right. That is a huge selling point for the city to be able to say, hey, our fire department is a class 2, and you know, there's about 800, 900 fire departments depending on where you look at on the internet, and 22 of those departments in the state of Missouri are ISO Class 2. So there's a very small amount of Class 2 departments. So we're just glad to be a part of that group.
So you're in a special group of people in the ratings and
We
how
are.
things stand and so forth. Well, you mentioned the coverage area. For people, the city of Joplin, they think, well, that, you know, city limits, but you cover a large area. I mean, Joplin spreads for many miles. Can you give kind of layman's terms of how much area do you have to cover in the city?
We do. Our coverage is approximately 50 square miles, give or take a few miles. You know, as we annex in property, it changes.
Right.
But it's right around the 50 square miles.
And how many stations are you serving this region with
We
now?
currently have 6 stations in the city, with plans to build Station 7 in the next couple of years.
Now, I believe perhaps, you know, maybe last time we talked about the new stations that were opening up, and people might recall those were built post-tornado. You have some now in parts of area that didn't have them, or you've rebuilt in parts of town.
That's right. Station 4, which is now at 34th and South Main, that was a station that was destroyed by the tornado. It used to be on Connecticut and 15th Street, basically just a little bit to the east. That station was moved to the south to provide a little bit better coverage down there. And then Station 2, which was at 21st and Main Lane, we moved it to 13th and Schifferdecker, Jung area, because there was a little bit of area that there was uncovered.
So as you're seeing area grow, you have to keep a feel for the parts of town as they're growing and developing, really.
You're exactly right. You know, Station 7 is going to be built out east between Flying J and the new industrial park, just because we have a feeling the city's going to grow out that way, and that industrial park keeps growing and growing. So it's kind of a guessing game. It's kind of a looking and see what's going on out there, and that's how we kind of.
So do you set goals as far as how many minutes of response for people when they place a call? You know, ideally we can be at someone's home or business within X number of minutes in town.
There are, and I think if I remember correctly, ISO wants us to try to be from point A to point B in 4 to 5 minutes or less. So that's what we kind of go by at the fire department. Once we get the call in the station, we want the truck rolling out the door in a minute or less. So.
And I know a lot of people may notice maybe traffic accidents or things in town that you're often there before an ambulance or any other responders in many cases.
We are, and that's kind of what kind of helps us, gives us a little bit of advantage sometimes, and that's why we started going on medical calls, car wrecks, because we are geographically located. You know, both ambulance services, which do a great job, only have a couple stations, but you know, they're stations. So we have 6 stations geographically located throughout the city, which enables us to hopefully get from wherever that call is to there in a quicker and effective manner. So.
Now, how has that affected the training then that your employees go through, the people who work?
Well, ISO requires a certain numbers of training per hour, per month, per guy, per year. So we were able to build a training center.
Right.
And one of the things that we were lacking was that the realistic structural firefighting training that we were able to do with the training tower now. So once we got a year usage underneath that, that's really what kind of helped us get those numbers where we needed them to be. So the training really hasn't changed as much. We always train. You know, training for us is no more than a football team practicing, a baseball team practicing. When we train those skills, that's us getting hands-on so we can be as good as we can be at our job. So the training hasn't changed much. It just pushed us over the top a little bit.
So the training center was built, as you said, through the taxes that the city supported, the citizens supported, and there was a need in our community that we needed this kind of centralized location where you could have the training and the hands-on experience for people.
There was a huge need. You know, before we had to train in old dilapidated structures, we trained in fire stations. It just was unrealistic. Or if we were able to train in a dilapidated structure, you never know what kind of hazards you might run into. You know, you couldn't do live fire training for sure in anything, whether because you're not allowed to burn houses. So the training tower has given us that hands-on, realistic training, cost effective. You know, we don't have to send guys off to do it. It's in our own backyard.
Right.
And so that kind of training is huge for us. It keeps us out of those areas where you might run into problems with asbestos or other kind of hazards that you might not see. So, yeah, it's huge.
Well, I know we have a lot of pictures and some video that the viewers can see as we talk about the training center. I guess perhaps we'll start off by explaining where it's at, people if they haven't actually seen it.
Our training center is located across the airport on Swede Lane. If you've driven by there recently, you've seen a large building going up right now. That is a 20,000 square foot training facility. and then the training grounds is right behind it.
Okay, so let's talk as we see the pictures here. This is an example of hands-on training.
It is. A lot of what we're going to see today is new recruit training. You know, we've had several new recruits training. Here they're doing some auto extrication training, getting hands-on use with those tools, the proper and safe ways to do it. Here they've removed a roof off that vehicle.
So you have to know how to do that for the time when it actually happens. Even something like a dumpster fire.
Yes, dumpster fires are quite common, so we have hands-on training with dumpster fires, how to open the lid. Here we have a flammable, what is supposed to be imitating a flammable liquid fire.
Okay.
So
it's like a
how
gas
they approach
station
it,
fire or
things
something like that.
Yeah. They widen that fog so they can approach it, get to the situation. Here's one of our training chiefs just kind of coaching and training one of our new recruits.
So the big part of training recruits is that you can take every class in a classroom, but until you get here and actually use the equipment, it makes such a big difference.
You're exactly right. And here we have a new recruit learning how to come downstairs with a charged hose line, it looks like. So one of the things we do a lot of, we talk about is advancing hose lines up and downstairs through hallways. So they get, you know, you hit on it before, you're getting that hands-on training.
And it looks like it's stress. You see people working together. A lot of it's teamwork too.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, you know, when we go into fight fire, it is a team. We take a team of 2 in with us. It's not usually just one person. So there's always 2 to 4 people. So here you have new recruits learning with one of our partners, Joplin Fire Protection, fire sprinkler systems, things like that. So
you have a lot of people who work with you.
We
now,
do.
This building is now what you're talking about, the training tower.
This is the training tower itself. This looks like they're doing some what they call vent, enter, and search. It looks like there's a fire. They're going to enter, search, and make sure there's no occupants.
Okay, so they're going through all the steps they would do if they had to respond.
That is correct.
Right.
Here there's some more auto extrication training. Here one good thing about this tower is it's multi-hazard. You know, you can rappel out of it. You can practice confined space. What we see right here is they're practicing rappelling.
And it's also tall. I mean, that's an aspect that you can deal with high-rise or higher buildings.
It is. It's 5 stories tall. That includes the roof. It has 4 floors on it, then plus the roof on top. So it's 5 stories tall. Here's one of our instructors going over new recruits. Ropes are a big thing in the fire service. So, you know, whether it is to rappel down the side of a building.
So and of course, this is the wide shot showing the construction that you mentioned.
is.
So as people drive down the highway, they can look over and see this work underway. So we'll see some pictures coming up and a little bit of some of that as we go through the video. But that's quite a large facility, that facility itself.
It is. It's a 20,000 square foot building. It's going to include 6 classrooms, 3 smaller classrooms, and then 3 medium-sized classrooms. And the medium-sized classrooms have the ability to turn into 1 large classroom. We'll seat up to about 100. Our training administration staff will be out there. We're going to keep a fire truck out there. I believe the police department's going to keep a few vehicles out there for training as well. And this is the large area classroom there that we just saw. This looks like one of the smaller classroom areas. This training facility is going to have what we call a firearms training simulator in it for the PD, a jail simulator in it for the police department, and just computer dispatching training place. And
It benefits both the police and the fire department.
It does.
It really?
Yeah, the public safety. This is what we call the Public Safety Training Center. So it's not just fire department related; it's fire and police.
And working together, and you can see that it is just looking through the construction pictures. You can see the scope in the building, and it must have been exciting planning this. You know, what do you working with the police department? What do we need? How can we put this together in one building?
It really was, and we were kind of fortunate when Chief Stewart and I took over that a lot of it was already underway. We just kind of facilitated and pushed it along. We did change it a little bit because we were able to take what was going to be a smaller building, turn it back into a larger building, and it has been fun. And you know, he and I have learned a lot throughout the process.
I bet you always learn when you build something.
We do.
What's involved
we
for
have.
it and tying that together. Well, what about your employees, the officers, not only yours but the police? Looking forward to being able to use this facility. Is there a lot of buzz among the people who are working there? Yeah, this is neat.
There is, you know, just because of the fact that you're going to be able to get, hopefully, we're going to be able to attract some classes into this area that we've never been able to get before. That's what is so huge about this is you know, the cost savings to the taxpayer is going to be great. Is what we're hoping, just because we can have that training in our own backyard.
So in the past, if you had somebody who needs some specialized training, they had to go somewhere to get that type of skill.
We usually had to ship them off or send them to Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, Jeff City. sometimes further away depending on what the training was. So yes.
So now you're able to do this, and do you see that it's also helping your training staff as well by having their teaching in their own home, basically?
It is, and our training staff does a great job. We have Chief Mark Cannon and Chief Scott Cranford are both our training chiefs, and they do a fantastic job. But you got to give them tools like this to be able to do their jobs.
Right.
And training is so hard. If you can imagine training a bunch of men and women that think they already know it all and things like that. So you got to have this exciting, this creativity training, and they do a great job, and our folks are real receptive to it. So it is a fantastic asset for the city and for both police and fire departments.
I imagine it's probably an aspect of you have to anticipate anything possibly happening. We think of fires, but there's hazardous materials, a lot of other things your department deals with.
You're exactly right, and we are an all hazards fire department, and we don't just fight fire. So we do EMS calls. So we have an EMS fire training chief, and he focuses on the up-to-date, the latest technological things for EMS. We have hazardous materials. We have a special operations team which does technical rescue things such as high angle rescue, low angle rescue, confined space rescue, structural collapse rescue. So we have a lot of things that are going on that guys have to be trained on.
Right.
It's like I said, earlier, we have to have the ability to train because you don't get to do a lot of that stuff all the time. So you have to practice to be proficient at it because there's nobody else in town that does what we do, so we have to be good at our jobs.
You're the ones people are going to call when they need help. I know we have a short video clip, if they can find that, that kind of looks over the shoulder of some people going into a building, I guess it's the training tower, as they're fighting a fire. So that might help people visualize as well just what it's like to be looking over the shoulder of the firefighters and what they're doing. So we'll see if there's the video here.
This is what we call, what we use for practicing high-rise firefighting techniques. This is on the 3rd story of the training tower, and it simulates an apartment bedroom.
Okay.
So what you're going to see is these guys are going to open the door, there's a fire on the bed and above them in the ceiling, and they're going to practice putting it out. So
you can see the two working side by side, working together on this process.
So we always have 2 guys on the hose line, one kind of directing and watching and looking for other hazards, things like that.
So the nice thing about this tower is you can recreate this scene again. That facility is going to be there next time.
You can, and one good thing about this tower as well is we can have the ability to build movable walls, so it's not always the same scenario. Now, unfortunately for something like this, those props don't move in the room. But how you get there could change.
Right, the hallways they have to go down.
Exactly.
So they get used to working in the dark conditions that might exist if power went out and things like that.
Well, and most of the time when we have fires, you do have a limited view, whether it's complete darkness, whether it's a foggy darkness. So having the ability to do this is just fantastic.
Right. So the feedback after they were to go through a training session like that, then did you gather the crew together and kind of let's analyze what we just did, kind of that post-evaluation?
Oh, you have to. I mean, that is the key to making yourself better. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What can we do to improve or make us more efficient? If you get to the point where you think you're perfect, well, something else always comes along. So you have to constantly evaluate, then reevaluate, and continue on that process. So that feedback is huge.
So the profession is a continuing education profession that, somebody may have worked there for 15, 20 years or whatever, but they're still learning. There's nothing.
You're exactly right. One of the questions I was asked during an interview is what was one of my biggest weaknesses? Well, one of the words was knowledge. You're always learning. How I fought fire 15 years ago when I started, maybe a little bit different than it is today, just because of lightweight construction, the amount of fuels, the amount of stuff that we put in our houses now may be different than it was 15, 20 years ago. Firefighting is always the same, but the materials, what's the stuff built out of, how hot does the fire get, even fire behavior has changed a little bit with some science stuff, using flow paths to create a safer environment for firemen as they go into the house to push the fire and heat and smoke away from you. So things are constantly changing and updating. So you definitely should not be able to say, hey, I know it all in this job.
Right. So you're encouraging that continuing education, probably, as you say, requiring it, as you said at the beginning of the program.
We do. Our guys train once to, they do a cognitive type lecture series, and they go to the training tower and practice what they've learned, as well as daily training every day. So yeah, training's pretty important to our department.
Now the education side, of course, your people are trained. The public education that you work with, you do a big role in the community as well, just working with the public, the citizens, and trying to fire safety.
We do. You know, our part of our vision statement has the term proactively addressing the needs of the community, and one of the ways we do that, of course, is through public education, fire inspections, things like that. Public fire education is huge. You know, if you can get to these kids at a young enough age, start teaching the proper ways to get out of a house in case there's an emergency or a fire, calling 911, don't play with matches, what to do if your clothes catch on fire. Things like that can go a long way into hopefully building a successful individual as they grow up. Maybe they'll pass those on to their children and things like that, or we'll continue to teach. So yeah, it's huge.
So starting at a young age and then continuing through life. I know October, we've gone through October, but Fire Safety Month, we heard a lot of emphasis at that time, like smoke detectors and so forth.
October, you know, Fire Prevention Week started off as just that, Fire Prevention Week. Now it's turned into Fire Prevention Month for us. You know, sometimes it starts in late September and doesn't end the first week of November. You know, but it's like I said, it's huge. We do a puppet show with kids, usually about, you know, preschool to about first or second grade, to teach the techniques like don't play with matches, stop, drop, and roll, staying low and smoke to get out if you have to. One of the big things that we hit on a lot is, you know, not to be afraid of firefighters. Because when you go into a building, you know, we're wearing an air pack with a mask and you sound like Darth Vader.
We saw in the video there.
So, you have to, you know, put that on. You let kids touch you, let kids hear you, breathe and stuff like that. So hopefully if they hear that sound, number one, they won't run from it, and maybe they'll come to it. So it makes, if you're trapped in a fire, it makes our job a little easier. Smoke detectors is always huge. We always emphasize when you change the clocks, change the batteries. You know, a smoke detector is just such a simple way to, and it could save your life. You know, it's an early warning system. You know, by the time that smoke detector, as the smoke goes up, if that smoke detector goes off, you still got a chance to get out, because right now all the smoke's at the top. So making sure that those are all up to date and making sure they're in date. You know, most people don't know this, but smoke detectors are only good for a period of 10 years. So when you change your battery, check the back of that smoke detector and see when it was manufactured. And smoke detectors are so big to us that the fire department gives them away.
If people can't afford to buy them.
If people can't afford to get them or they need them, we'll give each individual two, because they're that important.
So it's important for that awareness of what they have in their house and the safety. I know that you were very involved in the fire department post-tornado, giving out weather radios and that type of thing, working with emergency management. So you work closely with the emergency management agencies in town to help with the public education as well. We do, and our emergency management director, Keith Stammer, is just awesome. I mean, he takes that department to a whole new level. But he does. He works with us closely, and so no matter what the season is, there's a plan that people can be putting in place in their personal life. I think one thing that he talked about last week was winter weather awareness, you know, making sure you have a kit in your car, things like that. So with the winter weather coming upon us, but yes, he does a great job of getting that message out. Now, for the citizens who are watching, we think about fire safety tips. Winter has its own type of fire safety concerns, and even the holidays that you need to look at it. It does. You know, as more and more people spend more and more time in their houses, especially as it gets cooler, people are going to start burning fires in their fireplaces, using space heaters if they have to. And the biggest thing that we want to stress when it comes to fireplaces is, if you have used it a lot before, make sure it's clean, get it inspected. You know, once again, a small thing like that could really prevent a tragedy from a house burning down. So have those chimneys inspected, make sure they're clean, burn good wood. When it comes to space heaters, make sure the space heater's up to date. You know, today space heaters are so much better than the space heaters that were back in the 70s and 80s, because they have anti-tip features. If it tips over, it shuts off. But you still got to keep the area around the smoke, around those space heaters clear. You know, 3 to 5 feet. So watch for curtains and things that are close to it. Clothes, trash, clutter, things like that.
If you're going to use a extension cord, use a real good, solid, heavy-duty extension cord, not those real cheap 98-cent ones. You know, if you're going to use them, you know, a power strip, make sure it has a breaker, things like that.
Right.
Just small things can prevent a tragedy.
So as people are decorating for the holidays and putting lights up around their house or their trees and so forth, those are all safety tips to keep in mind as well.
They are, and once again, it's the same thing. You know, don't overload. You know, don't be Clark Griswold.
Have your house
You know,
glowing.
if you're plugging in something in and stuff's popping, cracking, you probably got too much. You might want to do something different. So, but yeah, it's the same thing with use heavy duty extension cords. Don't overload outlets. Just little things. So.
Now, do you have information available, let's say, on website or Facebook pages, and so people can get information from the fire department?
We do. Our Facebook page, we have a tendency to post different things around different times of year. I know one of the things we talked about was recently was Halloween safety tips.
Right.
But yeah, if you go to our Facebook page, we have a tendency to post little safety tips
Sort of current
around
issues
certain
and things
times
to
of
look
the year.
at and so forth. Well, Chief, as you look at the fire department in Joplin, what would you say are the biggest points of pride? Someone says, what's the point of pride for being chief of the department?
Well, yeah, I got great people, great men and women that really truly care about the community as a whole. You know, they want to take care of the community. They enjoy serving the community, and that's all we are. We're public servants, and they enjoy their jobs. You know, so it's you know, I took this job for a reason. You know, and that was to help Mr. and Mrs. Smith out on the worst day of their life, whether it's 30 seconds, whether it's a minute, whether it's an hour. And the men and women of this department have that same kind of attitude. They're here to serve, and they want to make someone's negative day turn more positive. So that's probably my best thing, is because without them, we're not the department. So, I mean, they play just as huge a role in our ISO rating as others. They put in the work, they do the work, you know, so.
So the people who are working for you being a key to success.
They make my job a lot easier.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with us today and sharing information for our viewers and the citizens in Joplin.
Well, I appreciated being here. It's great to be able to get that message out, you know, because I know a lot of people didn't realize that our ISO had dropped and what's going on with the training center, so it's always great. And it's always a huge opportunity to be able to thank them, because the citizens play just as much success in our department as the men and women do, so I appreciate the time.
Well, you're welcome, and getting the citizens and the community prepared when something were to happen.
Yes, it's always good to be prepared.
Right. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. I'm Judy Stiles. I hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.